YouTube, what's going on? It's Jamar back from Vegas Sense. In this video, I'm comparing another Dior Privee fragrance with the clone of that particular fragrance. And the clone that we're comparing with the original is by Maison Alhambra, and that's Maison Alhambra's Tabac. And we're comparing that to Dior Privee's Tobacolor. So if you're brand new to the channel, definitely go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Also leave a like and a comment below. And please share the video if you find the information helpful. So this particular fragrance, Tabac, I picked this one up earlier this winter. I want to say probably February or so is when I picked this one up. And I picked this one up kind of with the expectation that it would smell similar to something like Xerjoff's Naxos. I guess that was pretty ignorant of me to kind of assume that, because I just assumed any sort of fragrance with tobacco and honey would smell pretty similar to that. And this didn't smell anything like Xerjoff's Naxos or the 1981X that I have from Alexandria Fragrances. So this one was definitely different. And when I first sprayed this on, I was like, okay, I get it. You know, I'm getting the honey, I'm getting the tobacco, but it was a lot different from what I was expecting. So I didn't necessarily love this at first when I first sprayed it on. But after kind of wearing it a few times, I started to like this one a lot more. And it's definitely something that I can't wait to, start wearing again once it starts to cool down again. So I was curious to know how close the, Tabac was to the actual original Tobacolor. So I went ahead and picked up a sample of this Dior Tobacolor from decantx.com, and it was only about $10 with free shipping. And as I mentioned, in the previous video with the the Fave Delicios clone comparison, this took over a week to get here. So I purchased the Fave Delicios and Purple Oud by Dior in the same order, and they took over a week to get here. So I mean, it is free shipping, but I would definitely recommend probably going with the expedited shipping for anyone that wants to shop on that site and pick up samples from them. So just to get into the comparison, pretty much these two smell very, very close to each other. Like I would say at least about 97% close or so. I did pick up on like a slight difference both in the dry down and also when these two were both kind of sprayed on. And I'll go ahead and refresh the opening of these two fragrances to kind of go over that as well. All right, so let's go ahead and see what the differences are in the opening here. So this is the Tabac, and this is the Tobacolor. So in the opening, definitely the Dior it's a little bit more smoother. I can say that for sure. The Tabac comes off slightly more harsh. You could tell that it definitely has a little bit more sort of alcohol blast, in the opening. And the Dior is just pretty much just smooth right away with that sort of sweet honey and tobacco combination that you get with Tobacolor. So those are like the main differences that I would say that you'll notice, at least in the opening of these two. But the Maison Alhambra Tabac, it starts to settle down and kind of smoothen out within at least, probably the first 30 seconds to a minute or so. And now I can say that, yeah, the Maison Alhambra at this point has definitely smoothed itself out. And now I'm starting to get, you know, the same type of vibe from the Maison Alhambra, where it's that honey, it's the multiple different types of tobacco. But I will say though that the Dior even still is slightly more smoother. Now, is it significantly smoother? No. You know, I would say probably a good 5%. Also, the tobacco in the Maison Alhambra, it comes off as being slightly more green. I would say probably more so kind of like the stems of the tobacco leaf. Now, it's not like a major difference, but you know, definitely if you're kind of smelling these side by side, like those are the differences that I can kind of pick up. Now, I don't know if someone would be able to know the difference that, let's say you blindfolded somebody who owns Dior's Tobacolor and you said, okay, I'm going to spray, you know, some of the fragrances in your collection on you, and I want you to tell me which fragrance this is. I don't think that if you sprayed Maison Alhambra's Tabac on that person and had them smell it, that they would be able to know, like, oh, well, no, that's not my Tabac. Like, I can tell it's trying to be Tabac, but that's not Tabac. Or Tobacolor, I'm sorry. So, yeah, the differences are negligible, I would say. You really kind of have to dig in to be able to tell the differences. So, you know, obviously no clone is going to be 100% one-to-one, or most clones won't be anyway. But this one is definitely close enough to where, in my opinion, it's given the same type of experience. And honestly, I would say that the Maison Alhambra is just slightly more stronger than what the Dior is. But again, the Dior is definitely, it still is a little smoother, and you could say more well blended than what the Maison Alhambra is. Now let's go ahead and go to the dry down of these two fragrances and see what the differences are. So in the dry down of these two fragrances, I get more honey from the Dior Tobacolor. This is definitely holding on to that honey note a lot more. And it still just has, like, it has this perfect balance of, you know, kind of like that honey, the tobacco. I would even say, you know, some slight sort of floral aspect to it as well. Whereas the Dior Tobacolor, or I'm sorry, the Maison Alhambra Tabac, this one, it still smells a little bit more green. Like I said, almost kind of like it has more of like the tobacco leaf stems in the fragrance. And there's not as much honey in the Tabac either. Like, you can smell the honey in this one, but it's not as sort of thick and prominent as what it is in the Dior Tobacolor. The Dior Tobacolor, with that extra added honey note, it kind of makes it smell and feel a little bit more warmer than what the Maison Alhambra is. The Maison Alhambra, to me, it kind of smells slightly more sort of earthy. So overall, I would have to say that this Maison Alhambra Tabac is at least, I would give it probably 95% close to Dior's Tobacolor. Now, in terms of whether or not you should, save up and buy the Dior over this one, I honestly can't say so. Like I said, the Dior, you can tell that it is a little bit better blended. It does sort of have an extra kind of warmth to it. Like I said, with that, added prominence of like the honey note, and, again, the tobacco in that one is not as sort of green and earthy as what it is in this one. But in my opinion, these two are both giving off, pretty much the same sort of experience. And I mean, for the most part, the same type of smell. And I mean, the differences between these two, I think, can only really be told, by actually going in and, smelling each one side by side. So I think that if you're someone that doesn't really care about how much fragrances cost, then, maybe just buying the full bottle of Tobacolor may be, the best thing for you to do, because that one does smell slightly better than what Maison Alhambra's version does. But if you're just an average guy that, doesn't necessarily have $300+ to spend on a bottle of, fragrance, then this one, in my opinion, will do you just fine. And I don't think most people would be able to tell the difference between this and, the Dior, at least not in the air with you wearing it. So I would recommend this one over the Tobacolor, just for that simple fact that, it costs over 10 times less than what the Dior does, and it comes within at least 95% close. All right. So let me know, man, what do you all think about Tabac? Do you love this fragrance? Do you hate it? Have you smelled this and the original Dior fragrance? And how do you think these two compare in terms of closeness? Do you think that this is 95% close, or do you think it's even closer than that or less close? Let me know in the comments. All right, so definitely, again, if you are brand new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Also, leave a like and a comment below, and share the video if you found the information helpful. And that's Jamar from Vegas Sense. I'll see you on the next video.